Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today, January 15th of 2022, to talk about something that I think is very interesting. It's the division in America, the separation, the reality that there are two different Americas that exist side by side. And we wanted to take a look at some of the evidence of that division and to ask the question, what happens next? And perhaps one of the easiest way to find out about that is, well, let's go, Brandon. You'll see what we mean in just a moment. But if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, we want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. We do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m., we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to be able to receive your tweets and your chats and your phone calls from anywhere in the globe. And we do this because we believe in your right to free speech. It's not just an American value. It belongs to you everywhere in the world. I mean, whether your government agrees, whether the internet overlords agree or not, we invite you every Sunday to join us in our live stream at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to tell us what you think about the issues that are affecting us all. So, America is divided. I think that's an understatement for most people. In fact, it's something that's being noticed more and more every day. We see it in our entertainment. We see it in almost every aspect of our lives. We're being told that people aren't bangable, and that's a bad thing. And if they are bangable, that's a bad thing. Even as many people are saying, but I just want to play a video game. We see a lot of people who are saying that they're backtracking, that they're upset, and they're apologizing for things that they did in the past that today some people think are bad. And in fact, we know that our friends across the pond over in the United Kingdom, they realize it and recognize it just like many people in the world. Because America is less free today than it was yesterday. In fact, as it's been done in studies and as noted in the United Kingdom and therefore the rest of the world as well, 20 years ago, Americans were more free. For many of those who are watching this and were born in the last 20 years, you don't know the difference, and that's the problem. America is becoming less and less free because America is more and more divided. And perhaps one of the biggest ways to be able to see that, one of the things that makes it most clear for us all, is let's go, Brandon. Now, this is something that a lot of people were either very upset about or a lot of people didn't care about. You may have noticed this back in December when we heard this from the White House.
This is the most incredibly insane thing I've ever seen.
I agree.
I hope you have a wonderful Christmas.
Yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas as well. Merry Christmas, and let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
I think everyone saw that. Now, at the time, when we saw it, we thought it was funny. And if you aren't familiar with this, and there are quite a few people who aren't familiar with it, believe it or not, let's go, Brandon is a saying that was created over the summer of 2021 at a NASCAR event. And it was something that was made up by news media to cover up what was actually being said by large crowds at the time. And that happened to be F. Joe Biden. And we've seen throughout the summer of 2021 and continuing since that time, this is something that has been repeated as a chant at live sporting events, music events. It's been on news. It's been made into a video. It's everywhere. It's, as you can see in the video, it's even part of t-shirts and hats. Because when you look at it side by side, it tells us something about America today and where America may be tomorrow. Let me show you what we mean. What you see on your screen right now is on the left-hand side of the screen are Republicans. On the right-hand side are Democrats. This is a poll from YouGov, and it's in reference to Let's Go, Brandon. The exact same questions are asked on each poll We took the poll on January 15th, 2022, early in the morning. Within minutes of finishing the poll for Republicans, we then took it again for Democrats, and we put the results side by side for you on each and every question. And I think the difference in the way Republicans and Democrats are answering this tells us a lot about where America is and where America will be going. So let's actually look at it. So the poll starts off with, do you think Americans should have the right to express their political views at work? From Republicans, we see that 73% of Republicans say yes. 47% of Democrats say yes. That's the number one answer from both sides. All Americans are saying you should have a right to be able to express your political beliefs at work. Now, it's unclear. Does that mean when you walk in the door? Does that mean wearing a t-shirt, a bumper sticker? Is it a discussion at lunch or on a break? That's unclear. But however it is being done, they believe that it should be. Although the difference is very significant. 73% of Republicans and just 47% of Democrats. That tells us there's a very different view on rights and how to exercise those rights. And it's something that you'll see throughout the entire poll. And so for the second question asked, have you seen someone actually do that, to actually express their point of view? Again, whether it's in the parking lot, a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, whatever it may be. And the answer from Republicans and Democrats were both not just yes, but very, very similar. 84% of Republicans have seen that. 79% of Democrats have seen that, which is very close, but not exactly the same. And it's interesting when we consider, but Democrats don't really think you have that right. Only 47%. Okay, well, let's go further. Do you think it's good or bad etiquette to express your political opinions at work? Okay, so we've already established that people have the right to do that. Mostly by Democrats, definitely by Republicans. And everybody has seen it being done, but is it rude for you to express your opinion? Is it rude to share that point of view? Well, according to Republicans, it's not good or bad. 63% say it's just what it is. And we see from Democrats, 60% say, no, it's bad. So you have the right to do it, according to Democrats and Republicans. And everybody's seen it being done, but Democrats don't like when you do that. They don't agree with it. They think it's rude. Republicans think it's just life. That's what the poll is saying, side by side. Okay. Next question on there. Would you stop using any services or professions if you found out that they had a different political opinion than yours? Now, this is incredibly important, I think. And I think this is really, really big. For Republicans, 57% of Republicans, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are. You have that right to have a political belief. You have the right to share that political belief. You have that right to express yourself. But for Democrats, that's not the answer. Democrats believe that you should be punished, that it's something that they would hold against you, that they would punish a business, not because of the quality of the business, because it is assumed that it's exactly same quality, same service, same, perhaps even the same people. But because someone doesn't have their political belief, they would punish them, that individual and that business, for not being a Democrat. 55% of Democrats would have a problem going to a psychologist because of their political belief. 45% have a problem with lawyers and attorneys that don't share their political beliefs. 41% wouldn't use a doctor that has a different belief than their own. In terms of Republicans, for mental health, that's 25%. For lawyers, 21%. For doctors, that's 14%. That's miles apart. There is a huge difference here. And we have to wonder about that. That tells you something. That Democrats, yes, they think you should be able to have a right to express yourself. And yes, they've seen people express themselves, but they think it's bad that you do that. And if it's something they don't like, they will hold it against you. And that's something they consistently and overwhelmingly, compared to Republicans, will do. Even in the fields of psychology, which has nothing to do with political preference, or a lawyer or attorney, the laws are the laws. Your political preference does not change the law. Or a doctor, medicine does not change based on a political preference. This is an amazing thing. Hairdressers, even hairdressers. This is something that has the least to do with politics you could possibly imagine. Cutting someone's hair has nothing to do with their political beliefs. They can do that well or not because they're good at it or not, but their politics don't make them better. And yet, 32% of Democrats would hold that against the hairdresser and the business, whereas we see 10% of Republicans would hold that point of view. There's a massive bias there. There is a difference, a huge change in America. So now comes the question about Let's Go Brandon. Have you heard of the term Let's Go Brandon, which stands in for the saying F Joe Biden? 90% of Republicans have heard of it. 73% of Democrats have heard of it. That also makes us wonder, why aren't Democrats hearing about it? Why are Democrats that far different than Republicans? It implies that there is a difference in the way they are consuming information, or that the information or the outlets that they are getting their information from isn't telling Democrats the same thing that Republicans are telling, or the news media is telling Republicans. That Democrats are being isolated from the reality of what's happening in this term, even though it's been something that was with the White House, even though it's been at concerts and at sporting events. Do you think saying, Let's Go Brandon, is more or less offensive than saying F Joe Biden? Now, let's be very clear. To say F Joe Biden, well, that is absolutely a curse. That is a curse against him. And it is a very negative comment. It may be political commentary, but it's still very rude, very vulgar. And we see that 54% of Republicans find that it is less insulting, less vulgar, less offensive to say, Let's Go Brandon, as opposed to F Joe Biden. And for Democrats, 68% think it's the same thing. We're seeing Democrats equate Let's Go Brandon as exactly the same thing as saying F Joe Biden, and Republicans are seeing it as being far less insulting, far less negative. So they have different views. We have very different views about Joe Biden. We have very different views about political commentary, because F Joe Biden and Let's Go Brandon, they are political commentary. And we know that Democrats are less likely to approve of anyone expressing their actual political viewpoints. So there is a division, and this division is getting wider and wider as we're looking at this. That last year, there was a commercial airline pilot, and he said the phrase, Let's Go Brandon. And he said that to passengers over the intercom. Should the pilot have been fired? Yes or no? And we see that for Republicans, 91% say no. It is not a firing offense. But from the Democratic side, we see that 78% say he should be fired. So not only do they think this is an insulting term, but they think that to say something that they do not politically agree with is a firing offense, even though they've already said you have a right to express yourself at work, but they don't want to hear it. They don't want you to say it. And they want you punished for having said it, not engaging with your business or that person and in firing that person for having said something they stated they believe you have a right to do. Republicans consistently are saying, no, you have that freedom, you have that right, and it doesn't matter if I agree with it. That's not an opinion. That's what the poll is saying. The poll goes on to ask the question, so what about other places? What about besides work? What if, is it all right to express a political point of view in a school? And we see that for Republicans, 49% say, yes, it's acceptable. 52% of Democrats say it isn't acceptable. Again, we're seeing a very big difference. Republicans are saying they're willing to have a discussion. They're willing to hear it. Democrats are saying, no, definitely not. What about on a first date? Well, amazingly, this is something that both Democrats and Republicans both agree on. That on a first date, yes, 73% of Republicans, 75% of Democrats agree you can ask someone about their politics on a first date. Based on all the other questions, Republicans would date someone anyway. Democrats won't. Based on the answers in this poll, it's because they want to punish someone. If you don't have their same point of view, well then, if they wouldn't go to your business, if they wouldn't have a doctor look at them because of politics, how likely are they to date someone? What about at a family dinner, which is an intimate setting? It's a setting with your friends and family. Okay. What about then? Well, for Republicans, 81% of Republicans say, yes, you're in my home, you can express your point of view. And for Democrats, only 63% are saying it's okay to express what your views are. Look at this in context. Consistently, Republicans are willing to hear different ideas. Democrats aren't. What about at a place of worship? Whether it's a church, a synagogue, a temple, whichever one you may participate in, 55% of Republicans find this to be acceptable, but 71% of Democrats don't. Consistently, we're seeing in poll question after poll question, Democrats don't want to be exposed to an idea that isn't the one they already have. Republicans are tolerant. Republicans are willing to hear different points of view, and they're not willing to punish people for that. Democrats will punish you because you don't have the same idea, and they don't want to hear any voice that isn't the same voice they've heard. This is the polling data. And lastly, the last question is, at a sporting event, would you accept others expressing their political points of view? For Republicans, the answer is 80% are perfectly fine with that. For Democrats, 37% say it's okay. 55% say, no, you can't do that. And looking at this poll, we're seeing two different Americas, and those two Americas don't work together. We have one set of Americans, as represented in the polling, consistently saying that they have tolerance, that they have open-mindedness, that they want to hear what someone will have to say, because they have the right to do that, and they're willing to hear them. And then on the other side, we have Democrats who are saying, yes, you have the right, but don't do it. And if you do, in fact, share your political views, they will hold it against you, especially if it's something they don't agree with. If it's a point of view that they don't have. How do you run a country like that? And Democrats are supposed to be the party of tolerance, and yet their answers are, we are intolerant, that they are unwilling to hear anything, that they want to silence people. Democrats are holding you accountable for their feelings. As this is happening, America is becoming less and less free. And we have generation after generation growing up not knowing the freedoms that they have lost. You don't have to agree with Let's Go, Brandon. You don't have to think that it's a political statement or that it's appropriate to say. But what we're seeing in the poll from YouGov, they don't believe in freedom. At least, not freedom that's spoken out loud. They believe in punishing people for doing things that they know they should be able to do. Does that make you think that America is going to be more free in the next 20 years than we are today if we continue in this trend? Does that make you believe that America is going to be more unified and working more cohesively? Does that mean we're going to be able to effectively have international policy? They don't hear other voices. They don't want to hear other voices. Do you think that's positive? That will help? Perhaps you think that the poll doesn't indicate what we are concluding. Perhaps you think that there are other reasons why Democrats are having such a dramatic difference in the responses as opposed to Republicans. And if you do, we'd like to hear what you have to say. We found this quite interesting and eye-opening, and I think it's a bit scary. Because America, in the time, as we're dividing and separating and standing away from each other, as one part of America is closing its ears and its mind, America is losing freedom. And when America loses freedom, the rest of the world loses that freedom too. Whatever you think, we look forward to hearing your voice. And we hope that every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you join us in our live stream to tell us what you think, to share your thoughts about this and everything else that's going on around the world.